So, Patrick, my friend, I know, again, not the biggest Star Trek fan, but what did you think of this rewatch of Star Trek The Motion Picture?
I mean, I think you're selling me on the Star Trek. I am a Star Trek fan. I don't love the show, but I mean, I like the original series a good deal. I'm currently nearly done with season 3 of TNG. I might be completely done with the show by the time this episode comes out. Who knows? So yeah, I've seen all the movies at this point, even though a lot of them honestly aren't worth watching.
Yeah.
And I'm tempted to say this one is one of those, but I think with the Shatner performance, this fun score, beautiful visuals, there's still a decent amount to kind of take from this. I mean, I don't think it's a great movie overall. It's got major pacing issues. It feels like an episode of the show just stretched out for better and for worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the most entertaining movie, but it's decent. It's good.
It's really weird because when I used to watch this as a kid with my dad all the time, I loved this movie. But I also forgot that I had always fallen asleep like an hour in. And I always woke up at the end. Watching it as an adult, again, I mean, and just to clarify, I have seen the whole thing before. Multiple times, and I still like this movie. But rewatching it this time, I was just like so tired after like the hour and 8-minute mark, I think. And it's just them hovering in front of this space anus for an hour, not doing anything.
Right.
As you brought up, that does feel like an episode from like the original series. And that is like the stuff that I hate from the original series.
I was going to say, it feels like the original series. It's also like the least attractive or exciting bit of foreplay you've ever seen.
Send Nimoy in. But no, it's exactly that to me. The whole second half is very slow. It has that awful pacing throughout the movie where you get these long beauty shots of the models. They just kind of completely remove you from the story and what's actually going on.
Well, and not just that, but even like when Nimoy, because the first bit is kind of slow. Even though I like the first act, I like Shatner coming back to the ship and everything. Oh, Nimoy's finally aboard. You're thinking like, okay, the movie's really going to pick up now. But then it doesn't. It continues with its snail pace after that. Because we've been waiting for Nimoy, because I don't know about you. Well, actually I do, because you've proclaimed yourself a Bones guy. But, I mean, Nimoy is the fan favorite. He's the most beloved, most known thing about Star Trek. Everyone knows the live long and prosper. His weird eyebrows and everything. So okay, we want Spock. And then he shows up, and I don't want to say he doesn't do anything. For a while, he's the only person that does anything until Decker. But yeah, I don't know. You just kind of, that's that like fan service kind of moment. Where, keep in mind, I mean, this is 10 years after the show's done. So this is your first time seeing Spock in 10 years. And you think when he's back, like, oh yeah, a joyful reunion. But then it's in character for him not to care, obviously. And I like that. I like that this movie does a good job of, I think this could be a decent introduction to Star Trek. It's not a good introduction to Star Trek in the sense that I think it's kind of boring. But I think it's a good introduction to Star Trek. Someone who's never seen an episode of the show, doesn't really know what it is, hasn't seen a movie, in the sense that we understand Vulcans really well in this movie. It kind of reminds you with the little Vulcan ritual thing in the beginning, and then even when he's aboard, even though it's clear everyone else knows him and loves him, like, he doesn't care. It's like, okay, I understand Vulcans just from that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say Spock's a weak point, but I don't really want to say he's a strength in this movie either.
I understand that. And I think, just to kind of quickly reiterate, for me, really the only bad things about this movie are the pacing and I guess some of the effects. They just look really dated and silly, but I can't really hate the movie for that. But something I can dislike the movie for is the pacing, which is the big problem.
That's definitely the biggest problem. I actually don't have a problem with the effects. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I don't mind it. I think a lot of it, especially because, like, I don't even know if cinematography is the right word, but, like, things are shot in a really interesting, engaging way with the visuals, be it with model shots or when it's, like, all those things going on with the lights and colors and stuff. It is a gorgeous movie to look at. So in that sense, I'm kind of, like, okaying a lot of the, maybe not the best effects in the world kind of thing.
Yeah, and then kind of jumping off your point about the Spock reintroduction and the whole reintroduction to the old cast, I think it's actually a really good movie for fans of the TV show. And I totally agree with your point. This wouldn't be a good starting point for somebody who knows nothing about Star Trek. But even for people with like
that's
a basic...
like the opposite of my point. I'm saying it's a bad starting point in the sense that it's just not the most exciting movie, but it's a good starting point.
Oh, yes.
In the sense that it shows you a lot of, like, what Star Trek is.
Yes, okay, yes. And I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
And as for big fans, or just fans of the show, I think this is a fantastic movie. And you're right where Spock is, like, the fan favorite. But I think it's really cool how he came back the way he did, and where he was very cold and unfeeling.
Yeah, I like that moment. That's the best Spock moment in the movie, I would say.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And then, I mean, again, I love Bones coming back as Disco Bones, big beard, gold medallion around his neck. He's like, God damn it, Jim, they drafted me. And Kirk's like, hey, actually, it was me. He goes, oh, God damn you, I don't want to come onto their ship.
It's like they pulled him out of the retirement home. And
I know, yeah. And then
Bones is just a fun character because he's constantly angry. And and DeForest Kelly's just very, very funny in this role.
Yeah, and the ending, after, Decker's disappeared and everything, Spock kind of turns back to his normal, the original series self, and you get that shot that the fans were waiting for of Bones, Spock, and Kirk standing together and saying, hey, let's go off and do some more adventuring. And they're all kind of laughing. And, I'm sure Bones made some kind of comment about Spock being a Vulcan, a cold, unfeeling Vulcan, and Spock was like, yes, you're right, Doctor. But
for those that aren't that familiar with the show, like, you think, like, okay, there's Sulu, there's Uhura, there's, like, all these characters. The show was mostly just the main three. It was Bones, or McCoy. I don't think we've even said the name McCoy yet.
Yeah, Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, Dr. McCoy. It's Bones, Kirk, and Spock are, like, the main players in virtually every episode. You get the occasional Scotty episode. Yeah, it's always those three, and it's always... Spock is cold and heartless, and Bones is kind of overly emotional, and he gets angry at Spock a lot and yells at him and makes fun of him, but, like, doesn't really hate him either. It's kind of a fun relationship where he's, like, making fun of him, he's joking about him, but, like, Spock doesn't care, can't react to that kind of thing.
Spock, I'm an escalator. Damn it, I'm a doctor, not an escalator. Give me a hand here. Well, no, and then also going to your point about Shatner, yeah, I think he's a great actor in this movie. I think he plays the part really well. I think he probably really enjoyed getting to play the part of Kirk again because he is this egocentric person. Though I do like Shatner. If I ever met Shatner, I would be beside myself because I think he's super cool. Though for some reason a lot of Canadians dislike him. And, I guess a lot of people dislike him. That's true, yeah. But you know what the weird thing was, though? Because I agree with you. He's a great actor in this movie. He played, like, that sober, stern captain really well, like that military captain really well.
Yeah. Can't use that word for Scotty, of course, but I gotcha.
But, I read this review on the motion picture. Like, most of the critical reviews were pretty iffy on the movie. They're like, it's all right. The first hour is really cool. The second hour is pretty shit. The acting is fine, yada, yada, yada. But this one critic, I don't remember who it was, he said Shatner's performance was absolutely terrible. He's a terrible actor. He can't act. And then he said, I forget the words he used, but he said, Shatner's also terribly out of shape. He is so out of shape that he's probably the worst out of shape leading actor I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, what? Like, it's not like he was like, he's not James Doohan,
this was before James Gandolfini in The Sopranos, of course. But but James Doohan's not a leading man. We know
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that with Shatner. I mean, we all know, like, Shatner was always a little bit heavier probably than he should have been, even going back to the original series.
He always wore a girdle from, like, season 2, I think, on of the original series. He was wearing
he wears like an Ash versus Evil Dead type, like, corset kind of thing. That's awesome.
But yeah, that's it really. I really like this movie, but again, the first hour is definitely much better than the second. But yeah, just to kind of like wrap it up here, any shortcomings that this movie has, I want to chalk it up to Roddenberry being really weird and nitpicky, and that he wrote the original script, I guess, which would have been the pilot for Phase 2 that this turned into. And I don't know, I just feel like if there's anybody to blame, it's mostly Roddenberry.
But it's more fun to blame Shatner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But no, Shatner's the best part of it, but let's blame him anyways.